Hey people, get ready to crush everyday IELTS and CELPIP tests for all modules and make your dreams come true. I'm your motivator and I'll be guiding you through the test prep videos. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or you'll be missing out on some serious preparation.
Section 1. You will hear a man contacting a language school to inquire about evening courses. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 10. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 10.
Good afternoon, Riverside Language Academy. How can I help you?
Oh, hello. Yes, I'm ringing because I saw your advert in the local paper about evening courses, and I was wondering if I could get some more details.
Of course. We've got quite a few options at the moment. Were you interested in a particular language?
Yes, I've been thinking about Japanese, actually. I'm planning a trip next year and I'd love to have at least some basics before I go.
Lovely. Well, we do run a beginner's Japanese course. It's one of our more popular ones, to be honest. The tutor is a native speaker. Her name is Keiko Tanaka. She's been with us for about 6 years now, very experienced.
That sounds great. And when does the course actually start?
Let me just check. Right, the next intake begins on the 14th of July. That's a Tuesday, and actually the classes run every Tuesday evening after that.
Tuesdays, that works perfectly for me. And what time would that be?
The Japanese class runs from 6:30 until 8:15, so it's an hour and 45 minutes each session.
Right, okay. And how long is the whole course?
It's 12 weeks in total. And at the end there's an optional assessment if you'd like a certificate, but there's no pressure on that.
Good to know. Now, what about the cost? I imagine it varies quite a bit.
For the beginner's Japanese, the fee is £285 for the full course. That does include all your materials, the textbook, audio resources, everything.
Oh, that's not bad at all. And where exactly are the classes held? I know you've got a couple of locations.
Yes, we do. The Japanese classes take place at our branch on Pemberton Street. Do you know the area?
Pemberton Street? I think so. Is that near the hospital?
That's right, yes. It's just opposite the public library. You really can't miss it.
Perfect. Right, well I think I'd like to go ahead and enroll, if that's possible.
Absolutely. I can take your details now. Could I start with your full name, please?
Yes, it's Oliver Crampton. That's Cimpton.
Lovely. And a contact number?
Sure, my mobile is 07944 618 352.
07944 618 352. Got it. And can I ask how you heard about us, Oliver? You mentioned the paper, but was it a specific one?
Yes, it was the Evening Herald. There was a half-page advert, I think.
Ah yes, we placed that last month. Good to know it's working. Now, one more thing, for parking, if you're driving, there's a small car park behind the building, but spaces fill up quickly. Most of our evening students find it easier to come by bus. The number 36 stops right outside.
Oh, that's handy actually. I'll probably do that then. Is there anything I need to bring on the first evening?
Just a notebook and pen. As I said, we provide the textbook on the first night. Oh, and you will need to bring a passport photo for your student ID card.
A passport photo, right, I'll sort that out beforehand. Well, that all sounds wonderful. Thank you so much for your help.
You're very welcome, Oliver. We'll send you a confirmation email within a couple of days. See you in July.
Brilliant. Thanks again. Bye.
Bye now.
That is the end of section 1. You now have some time to check your answers to section 1. Section 2. You will hear a council representative announcing a new recycling program. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 20. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 20.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming along tonight. My name is Helen Mocchetti and I'm the Waste Reduction Coordinator for Drayton Borough Council. I'm here to tell you all about our brand new recycling program, which we're calling Green Drayton. Now, some of you may be wondering why we need a new program at all. Well, an independent audit carried out earlier this year found that only 31% of household waste in the borough is currently being recycled. That's significantly below the national average of 45%, so clearly we have quite a lot of catching up to do. The program was actually proposed not by the council itself but by a local residents' association, who submitted a detailed petition last September. The council reviewed it carefully and agreed to fund the scheme from existing budgets, so I want to stress that there will be no increase in council tax to pay for this. So, what's changing? First of all, every household will receive 3 new color-coded bins. You'll get a blue bin for paper and cardboard, a green bin for glass and metals, and a brown bin for food and garden waste. These bins will be delivered free of charge during the first 2 weeks of July. Collections will happen on a weekly basis, which is more frequent than the current fortnightly schedule. Your collection day will remain the same as it is now, so there's no need to worry about remembering a new day. However, you will need to have your bins out by 6:30 in the morning rather than 7, because the crews will be starting their rounds earlier. We're also launching a smartphone app called Sort It Right. The app will send you reminders before each collection and, most importantly, it includes a search tool where you can type in any item and it will tell you exactly which bin it should go in. We've found in pilot schemes in other boroughs that this kind of tool reduces contamination, that is, putting the wrong item in the wrong bin, by up to 60%. Now, let me briefly run through the 4 new facilities that form part of this program. First, the Drayton East Drop-Off Centre on Park Lane. This centre will accept bulky items such as furniture and mattresses, and it is expected to open in late August. Then there's the Riverside Recycling Hub near the Old Canal. This facility will specialise in electronic waste, things like computers, phones and televisions, and it will be staffed entirely by trained volunteers. Third is the Greenfield composting site on the edge of town. This is actually being converted from a disused car park, which I think is a wonderful use of that space. And finally, there's the mobile collection van, which will visit rural parts of the borough every Saturday. What's particularly exciting about the van is that it has been funded through a partnership with a national supermarket chain. We really believe Green Drayton can transform the way this borough handles its waste, and I'd encourage every single one of you to get involved. There are leaflets at the back of the hall, and of course you can visit our website for more details. Now, are there any questions?
That is the end of section 2. You now have some time to check your answers to section 2. Section 3. You will hear 2 students discussing their joint assignment on healthcare systems. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 30. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 30.
Sarah, thanks for meeting up. I think we really need to finalize our plan for this healthcare systems assignment before we see Dr. Evans tomorrow.
Absolutely. So, the first thing, which country are we actually focusing on for our case study? We talked about France and Sweden, but I think we should go with the Canadian model because there's been so much recent policy debate around it.
I agree. Canada makes sense, especially since the assignment asks us to evaluate a system that's undergone significant reform in the last decade.
Right. Now, for our methodology, I was thinking we should rely primarily on comparative statistical analysis rather than just literature reviews. The numbers will make our argument much stronger.
That's a good point. Although I did spend ages pulling together the literature review section. It took longer than planned, honestly, almost 2 full weeks just on that.
I know what you mean. The data collection was similar for me. But at least we've got solid material now.
True. What about the section on funding models? I found the public versus private funding comparison really interesting, but I feel like we still need more research on the private insurance component before we can draw proper conclusions.
I'd agree with that. The private insurance data is patchy. Let's flag that for Dr. Evans. Moving on, how do you feel about the patient satisfaction chapter?
Honestly, that was the most challenging part of the whole assignment for me. The survey data was contradictory, and synthesizing it into a coherent narrative was really difficult.
I can imagine. I had a different experience with the cost-efficiency analysis, though. The results were actually better than expected. The Canadian system scored higher on value-for-money indicators than I'd predicted.
That's great. Should we also include a section on digital health records? The tutor mentioned it briefly.
Yes, but I think our current approach to that topic needs a different approach entirely. We're too descriptive. We need to be more analytical and tie it to outcomes.
Fair enough. Let's restructure that part then. Oh, here's Dr. Evans now.
Hello, Tom, Sarah. How's the assignment progressing?
Quite well, Dr. Evans. We've chosen to focus on Canada because of the recent policy changes there.
Good choice. Now, what's your main argument going to be?
We're arguing that universal healthcare systems deliver better population-level outcomes despite higher taxation requirements, using Canada as our primary evidence.
Solid. And what structure are you following?
We've divided it into 5 main chapters: funding models, access and equity, patient satisfaction, cost efficiency, and digital innovation.
That sounds comprehensive. I'd suggest you make sure the access and equity chapter addresses waiting time specifically. That's often where the strongest criticisms of the Canadian system arise.
That's really helpful. We hadn't given waiting times enough attention, so we'll expand on that.
Also, for your conclusion, don't just summarize. I want you to propose at least 2 concrete policy recommendations based on your findings.
2 policy recommendations, noted. We'll work those in over the weekend.
Excellent. I look forward to seeing your draft next Friday. Good luck, both of you.
Thanks, Dr. Evans. We'll make sure to send it by Thursday evening at the latest.
That is the end of Section 3. You now have some time to check your answers to Section 3. Section 4. You will hear University Lecture on how coral reefs are formed and why they are under threat. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'd like to explore one of the most fascinating and biodiverse ecosystems on our planet, coral reefs. We'll begin by looking at how coral reefs are actually formed, and then move on to examine the major threats they face in the modern era. By the end of this lecture, you should have a solid understanding of both the biology behind reef construction and the urgent environmental pressures that are degrading these remarkable structures. So let's start with the basics. Coral reefs are built primarily by tiny marine organisms called polyps. Each polyp is a soft-bodied creature, but it secretes a hard outer skeleton made of calcium carbonate, essentially limestone. Over hundreds and even thousands of years, successive generations of polyps build upon the skeletons of their predecessors, and this gradual accumulation is what produces the massive reef structures we observe today. Now, crucially, most reef-building corals have a symbiotic relationship with microscopic algae known as zooxanthellae. These algae live within the coral tissue and perform photosynthesis, providing the coral with up to 90% of its energy requirements. In return, the coral provides the algae with shelter and access to nutrients. This partnership is fundamental, because without the algae, corals simply cannot grow fast enough to form reefs. Now, coral reefs don't just appear anywhere. They require very specific environmental conditions. First, they need warm water, typically between 23 and 29 degrees Celsius. They also require shallow water, generally no deeper than about 50 meters, because the zooxanthellae need adequate sunlight to carry out photosynthesis. Another important factor is salinity. Reefs develop best in water with stable and moderate salt levels, which is why you rarely find them near the mouths of large rivers, where freshwater dilution occurs. The clarity of the water also matters enormously. Sediment in the water column can block light and smother coral tissue, so reefs thrive in areas where the water remains relatively transparent. These conditions together explain why the greatest concentration of coral reefs is found in tropical regions, particularly across the Indo-Pacific. Let's turn now to the threats. The single most significant threat facing coral reefs today is bleaching, which is directly linked to rising ocean temperatures caused by climate change. When water temperatures exceed the coral's tolerance range, the polyps become stressed and expel the zooxanthellae from their tissues. Since these algae are responsible for most of the coral's color, the coral turns white, hence the term bleaching. If temperatures return to normal relatively quickly, corals can recover by reabsorbing algae. However, prolonged exposure to elevated temperatures leads to starvation and ultimately death. Major bleaching events have become alarmingly frequent, occurring roughly every 6 years now compared to every 25 years in the 1980s. Beyond temperature, another serious problem is acidification of the oceans. As the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere increases, more of it is absorbed by seawater, forming carbonic acid. This lowers the pH of the ocean, making it more difficult for corals to extract the calcium they need to build their skeletons. Research published last year estimated that reef calcification rates have already declined by approximately 14% since pre-industrial times. Additionally, human activities at a local level pose direct dangers. Pollution from agricultural runoff introduces excessive fertilizers into coastal waters, which triggers rapid growth of ordinary algae. These algae compete with corals for space and light, often smothering them entirely. Destructive fishing methods, including the use of dynamite and cyanide, physically shatter reef frameworks that took centuries to develop. To conclude, coral reefs represent an irreplaceable component of ocean biodiversity, supporting roughly 25% of all marine species despite covering less than 1% of the ocean floor. Protecting them will require both global action on carbon emissions and targeted local conservation measures. Thank you. I'll take questions now.
That is the end of section 4. You now have some time to check your answers to section 4. That is the end of the IELTS listening test. You now have some time to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.
Hey people, how was your test? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or you'll be missing out on some serious fun. See you tomorrow!